Have you taken LSD?
Before.
But you're a public figure, and you said it in the first place, and you must have known that it would have made the newspapers.
Yes, but to say it, you know, is only to tell the truth. I'm telling the truth, you know. I don't know what everyone's so angry about.
Well, do you think you have now encouraged your fans to take drugs?
I don't think it'll make any difference, you know. I don't think my fans are going to take drugs just because I did, you know. But the thing is, that's not the point anyway, you know. I was asked whether I had or not. And then from then on, the whole bit about how far it's going to go and how many people it's going to encourage is up to the newspapers and up to you, you know, on television. I mean, you're spreading this now at this moment. This is going into all the homes, you know, in Britain. And I'd rather it didn't, you know. But you're asking me the question. You want me to be honest. I'll be honest, you know.
But as a public figure, surely you've got a responsibility to lots and
No,
lots
it's
of
you've
teenagers.
got the responsibility. You've got the responsibility not to spread this now. You know, I'm quite prepared to keep it as a very personal thing, if you will too. If you'll shut up about it, I will.
Well, we don't have much time left. Does anyone have any idea how much time we do have? Let me confirm quickly a couple rumors with you.
Yes.
One of them, has it ever been settled whether Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was a code for anything?
It never was, and nobody believes me. I even saw some famous star introducing, I've forgotten who it was, introducing a Lennon-McCartney show, and it was Mel Torme saying about how Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was about LSD. This is the truth. My son came home with a drawing and showed me this strange-looking woman flying around. I said, what is it? He said, it's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And I thought, that's beautiful. I immediately wrote a song about it. The song had gone out, the whole album had been published, and somebody noticed that the letters spelt out LSD. And I had no idea about it. And, of course, after that, I was checking all the songs to see what the letters spelt out. Yeah. They didn't spell out anything, none of the others, and it wasn't about that at all, you know.
They could do that. Eleanor Rigby.
But nobody believes, you see. Yeah.
Stood for
there was Henry the
reading.
Horse in a song I wrote called Mr. Kite. The lyrics, which I got most of it off, was an old poster for an old-fashioned circus, you know, from the 1800s. And it was all about Pablo Fanke's fair, and the horse was there. And they said Henry the Horse was horse, which I didn't know anything about then, you know. And Happiness is a Warm Gun was another one, they said, which was banned on the radio. They said it was about shooting up drugs. And it was the front of a gun magazine which said, Happiness is a Warm Gun. You know, they're advertising guns. I thought it was so crazy that I made a song out of it.
Do you ever think of anything, I don't know if you knew Janis Joplin well or Jimi Hendrix
we
or
didn't
all,
meet,
but
but she sent me a birthday tape on my birthday. Last birthday, Yoko asked all different people to make a tape for me, and she was one of them. And we got it. After she died, it arrived in the post, that she was singing Happy Birthday to me in the studio.
What do you think could be done about drug overdosing in or out of the profession of music?
I think the basic thing nobody asked is why do people take drugs of any sort, from alcohol to aspros to hard drugs? And that question has to be resolved first before you think, well, what can we do for the poor drug addict? Why do we and you and anybody have to have these accessories to normal living to live? That means there's something wrong with society that's making us so pressurized that we cannot live in it without guarding ourselves against it. So it's that basic, the problem. I think if people are allowed to be a bit more free and express themselves, they wouldn't have to inhibit themselves by taking drugs to not be hurt. People take drugs and drink so as they don't feel what's going on around them.
Total freedom for everybody is our goal, you know. That way, you know, it will be a utopia.
People are frightened of freedom. They think freedom, oh, there'll be excesses. Of course there would be excess to an extent, and then it would settle down. The way the porno films don't pull so many people in now. So what? It'll level out. And all forms of freedom will be the same as that. If people are allowed to be completely free, it will level out, and people will be less inhibited and not be frightened of each other and wouldn't have to take drugs to prevent being hurt by each other.
We're almost out of time. Was that your house, by the way, in the film?
That's our house, yeah. I just wish to mention that my son visits me every weekend at that house, which is a beautiful home in Ascot with 80 acres of ground. Yoko's daughter is not allowed to visit us because her ex-husband won't let her see her own daughter. All Yoko wishes is that now and again Kyoko could be brought to that house to spend some time with her mother and with my son Julian, because it's a beautiful home. We have 8 or 10 children living there that belong to the staff.
That's wonderful.
And we're not allowed to see our daughter. and Yoko's going mad, as any mother would, because her daughter's been withheld from her. That's all we have to say about that. But that's the house waiting for her, if you're watching, Kyoko.
We must take a message from our locals, and we'll be right back. We've come to the end, and there are a lot more things we could talk about. Maybe you can drop back sometime when you're stateside.
Maybe next time we'll really perform live for you, you know. I'd like to do it.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. We will, thank you, John.
I'd just like to say, we're going on the road next year. John and Yoko and a band that I'm putting together, and we'd like to come and do live performance wherever we can.
We'll have the carpet out, and we're going away right now. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. It was a pleasure. Yoko, we'll see
Somewhere between albums and tours, there was a day where I had a dentist anyway. One night, John and his wife, Cynthia, and Patty and myself were having dinner at this guy's house. Now, this fella, for some reason or other, had obtained lysergic acid diethylamide 25, which at that time was, it was not illegal. It was a legally obtained medication. But we didn't really know about it. I seem to recall that I'd heard vaguely about it, but I didn't really know what it was.
And he just put it in our coffee or something, yeah. And we went, he was saying, I advise you not to. He didn't know what it was. There was just a sort of, you know, it's all the thing, you know, with the sort of the middle class London swingers or whatever. I hadn't all heard about it, and they didn't know it was different from pot or pills. And they gave us it, and he was saying, I advise you not to leave, and we thought he was all trying to keep us for an orgy in his house, and we didn't want to know, you know.
It became like a bit seedy to me. It looked like he was trying to, like, get something happening in his house. There was some reason he didn't want us to go. And then he was saying, okay, leave your car here, I'll drive you, and then you can come back later. I said, no, we'll go. And we got in my car and we drove. And this guy came as well in his car. We got to the nightclub.
You know, we were just insane. We got in the lift and we all thought there was a fire in the lift. It was just a little red light, and we were all screaming like that. And it was all hysterical. And we all arrived on the floor, because this was a discotheque that was up a building, you know. And the lift stops and the door opens and we were all going, ah!
It felt like the elevator was on fire and that we were going into hell or something. But we were all in hysterics and like crazy. And then we got out at the top and everything was okay, and I suppose, and we sat there probably for hours and hours. I ended up driving everybody home. It was like daylight, and I was driving this Mini with John and Cynthia and Patty in it, and we were going like, I seem to remember we were doing 18 miles an hour, and I was really concentrating, because some of the time it just felt normal, like as though everything was okay, and then before you knew where you were, suddenly it was all crazy.
But I really was frightened of that kind of stuff, because it's what you're taught when you're young, you know, hey, there's watch out for them devil drugs. So when acid came round, we'd heard that you're never the same. It alters your life and you never think the same again. And I think John was rather excited by that prospect. I was rather frightened by that prospect. I thought, just what I need. You know, he says, you have some funny little thing where I can never get back home again. You know, oh, geez, you know, may not be the greatest move. So I delayed, and I was seen to sort of stall a little bit, I think, within the group. It was, you know, because there's a lot of peer pressure. I mean, talk about peer pressure. The Beatles.
A dentist in London laid it on George, me, and our wives without telling us at a dinner party at his house. He was a friend of George's and our dentist at the time. And he just put it in our coffee or something, yeah. He was saying, I advise you not to leave, and we thought he was all trying to keep us for an orgy in his house, and we didn't want to know, you know. I mean, it was insane going around London on it, and we thought when we went to the club, we thought it was on fire, and we were cackling in the street, and then, you know, people were shouting, let's break a window. You know, we were just insane. I mean, we just had our heads, and finally we got in the lift, and
We all thought there was a fire in the lift. It was just a little red light, and we were all screaming like that. And the lift stops and the door opens, and we're all going, ah! And we just see that it's the club, and then we walk in, you know, sit down, and the table's elongated. It was only a table like this with 4 of us around, but it went this long. And then some singer came up to me and said, "Can I sit next to you?" And I go, "Only if you don't talk," you know, like, because I just couldn't think. And then George somehow or another managed to drive us home in his Mini, but we were going about 10 miles an hour. It seemed like 1,000. And I was getting all this sort of hysterical jokes coming out, like a speed, because I was always on that till, you know, and George was going, "Don't make me laugh!" And, you know, God, it was just terrifying. You know? But it was fantastic. And then George's house seemed to be just like a big submarine. I was driving it. They all went to bed. I was carrying on, and they seemed to float above his wall, which was 18 foot. You know, I was right driving them. And that's how it happened.
Let me ask you one other thing, George, because do you have any thoughts on why hard drugs and rock stars have become synonymous? I mean, you can see why if you had a life like Bessie Smith had, or Billie Holiday or something like that, what they went through. If I were them, I suppose I would take anything that was available. But I mean, most of the people in rock haven't had that dismal, grinding, horrible kind of life. That is it in any way a way of emulating those other people who were
well,
like those
there's a lot of, you know, I mean,
people.
a lot of pop people go through a hell of a lot, you know. Just say in 1 year they see so much, and they go through so many different things that they either just want to get high. I mean, basically it starts with people who just want to get high, you know, like people drink. I mean, that's a big problem. People have a drink, like I suppose after the show maybe you have a drink just to get a little high. So musicians, you know, either drink a little bit or maybe they smoke a bit, and then they want to get a bit high, you know, and they're sort of really looking for something. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with all those Bessie Smiths and all those people, because the world is such a hard place to try and make it in. So I mean, they're all just like buffers, all those drugs and things, and I suppose if they get on top of you, you know, they get next to you.
Why the ones who've killed themselves, your colleagues? Why heroin?
Well, that seems to be the big one.
Yeah.
I'm really unqualified to talk about heroin because I've never taken it, and I really don't intend to. There's you know, I'm sure it's just, it's probably just the best high, you know, that's what it's down to. It's the one that gets them the highest, the quickest. But it just happens to kill you faster as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, they all sort of kill you in one way or another. And there's very few people who seem to be able to experience something like heroin and then get away from it. Mm-hmm. Because it just gets in the system, and they become dependent on it. I don't know. It's sad, you know, it's really sad, because they're all looking for some deep love or something like that, and they miss it, you know. Yeah. It's much better to try and not take any drugs, you know. If you can get straight, really straight, then in a way it's much higher. I mean, I'm not really qualified to talk about that either. Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of in the middle, you know.
Actually asked me.